Ashe, greetings and goodwill to you all once again, my fellow natural native earthly humans the world over. Yes, you don't know that this is yours truly, I, the Mystic Philosopher. And welcome to part 22, the continuation of my series of talks titled Can Africa Be Set Free? And Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? Now, if you haven't yet watched or listened to part 1 through to part 21, I ask that you please do so before going forward with this part 22, or that you please do so at your earliest convenience. I can almost guarantee you that you may learn something, or you may be reminded about or of something, or at the very least, you may, by listening to the series from 1 to 21, you may get something to think about, something to provoke you, something to say, make you think things a little differently. And please note that I did not say that by listening to me or listening to my talks, you will learn something, but that you may learn something. For the truth be told, these talks, these presentations, if you will, are definitely not for everyone. I am well aware of the possibility, if not the fact, that some of you, my listeners, might be offended by the truth, or more correctly, by the facts that are enveloped in these talks. But as the late Bob Marley, the late Robert Nesta Marley once said in one of his songs titled Jaliv, which was one of his most famous songs, he said, and I quote, "The truth is an offense, but it is not a sin," unquote. And as the late Dale Carnegie once said, and I quote him again in his book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, he said, "Those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still," unquote. And for the record, I like to remind you that I'm not a con, and neither am I trying to convert or convince or con anyone in any way. I'm just here sharing another perspective from my angle of observation and thinking on a lot of things. So again, I thank you for tuning in and listening, especially you, my youths. So in part 22, by the way, as the title said, and it asked the question, can Burkina Faso be set free, and can, which is the land of upright people, be set free? Or can Africa be set free? And of course, by now you know that from my perspective, the answer is yes. So what I'm giving in these talks, in these presentations, is show you what must be done in order for it to be free. Not may be done, but must be done. So thanks again for listening and for tuning in. So in part 22, in this part 22, I will continue to recap and also to expound upon some of the facts and thought-provoking insights that I've already shared with you. And thus far, I've shared a lot of facts and thoughts with you, and I will continue to share some more here. Number one, I share with you the fact that you, or in general, we collectively must borrow, read, religiously study, teach, and above all, we must practice daily the science and the science, the art, and the philosophies of Sun Tzu, the art of war. Now, I told you that just like us, the natural native earthly humans, the soul people, the people of soul, aka the people of the sun, the sunful people, or the soulful people, identifiable by our highly enriched melanin and carbon skin complexion, people that are on and from Alkibio land, commonly called Africans. I told you that the country called China today, it wasn't that name, but the country called China today, and the Chinese people were also victims of imperialism and colonialism by the same Adamic race of humankind. These same vicious Johnny-come-lately creatures, the same invasive species that were created and are still being created, conditioned, programmed, and commissioned by their imperialist and colonizer God or gods, Elohim, a group of God, Elohim, to invade, to conquer, to subdue, to subjugate, to colonize, to rule, to exploit, to enslave, and to unalive us, the natural native earthly humans, and any and everything else that is natural upon this, our planet and Mother Earth. I told you that the country called China today and the Chinese people were also victims of the same people that were and are created. Therefore, anything that is created is what? Therefore, creatures, humankind, plague and parasites that has physically and mentally invaded and colonized our motherland, Africa, correctly Alcubiland, and her people. And they won't set us free. Has also invaded, these same people has also invaded and colonized and oppressed China. But unlike us Africans and fellow melaninated carbon people the world over, China was able to fully liberate themselves and their country from them and develop and expanded themselves into the proud technological and superpower that they are today. To the point that these same imperialists and colonialists, colonizers, are now feeling threatened by China. In other words, the table is turning if it has not already turned. And to prove my point that the imperialists and colonizers are carrying out the will of their creator, to prove that they are carrying out the will of their creator and God / Elohim, and also that China and its people were also colonized by them, I offered two quotes, which I will reiterate here. One from the imperialists and colonizers' own holy book, own history and holy book, commonly known as the Christian Holy Bible. And the other from a website called History Crunch at historycrunch.com. And the subtitle I will quote from: Imperialism in China Overview. Now, the first quote is from the imperialist history and holy book, aka the Christian Holy Bible. And I quote, Then God said, let us make mankind in our image. As I mentioned in one of my previous talks, that he could not, or they could not have said, let us make man. Because man, our ancestors were already here. They are the pre-Adamic natural native earthly humans. So, as it is now more correctly written in the New International Version, it said, let us make mankind. And what is mankind? What is a dog kind? A kind of dog. What is a cat kind or a lion kind? A kind of lion or a kind of dog? A kind of cat. So let us make mankind, let us make a kind of man in our image, in our likeness. So that they may rule. Listen to the purpose here now. So that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. Now ask and quote. Just ask yourself a question. Why would you want to rule over? Rule over means to dominate the bird in the sky. We have the saying, as free as a bird in the tree. Not even them are free from these creatures. Rule over the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all, even the wild animals. Their God is create them to rule over, to subdue, to control. And over the creatures that move up along the ground. So God created mankind, this kind of man, in his own image. In the image of God. He created them. Who else but a colonizer and an imperialist would do something like this? Check the meaning and the definition of the word colonist and look up history and see how they perform. These people are doing exactly what they were created to do. And he said, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And he continues, he says, this God, the creator of the imperialist, this imperialist God who created these type of people in his are in their own image. He said, then this God, Elohim correctly, which means a group of God, blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Why you want them to be fruitful and increase in number? To get rid of us, the natural native earthly humans, and fill the earth and subdue it. In order to fill the earth and replace it with a new kind, with a kind of, well, you have to go out and do whatever needs to be done to get rid of that which is there. And he said, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Tell me, unquote, this is in the Adamic Race History book according to Genesis 1:26-28, New International Version. Tell me, read it for yourself and look into it. Just get the point. What mindset, other than that of a colonist, a colonizer, and an imperialist, would want to do something like this? Tell me. And isn't this the said way you see imperialists and colonialists and the colonizers behave and are behaving? But more on that at another time. You get the message, I'm sure. The second quote, again to prove my point, that China was also suffered severely from these imperialists and colonialists, from colonization and imperialism. Let me quote again. The second quote. It said, and I quote, imperialism in China occurred throughout the age of imperialism alongside other major events such as British imperialism in India and European imperialism in Africa. In Africa, full stop. Imperialism in China is considered to have occurred primarily in the 19th century. But outside interest in China began centuries earlier. The major European nations of the time, Britain, France, Portugal, and Germany, played a significant role in imperialism in China. As well, other important nations that carried out expansion into China include Russia and Japan. By the early 20th century, these nations claimed large sections of China as spheres of influence. In all, imperialism in China is a significant event in world history and led to the development of modern China. Unquote. And again, this is from, you can find this in this beautiful article. A lot more is said there. You can read it on historycrunch.com. Historycrunch.com. And the subtitle that I just quote from is called Imperialism in China Overview. And as mentioned, their liberation, I, the Mystic Philosopher, attribute China and the Chinese people's liberation from the domination, slavery, and exploitation of these humankind and their God's mission of imperialism and colonialism to their great I attribute it to their great Chinese book called The Art of War. And that is why I strongly suggest, and again hereby strongly recommend, that you, my young people, you, the youths, and for the record, this, my suggestion and recommendation, is not necessarily intended for old folks like myself, and possibly older. Those of us whose days are almost over, if not already done. But I'm recommending for you, my youths, to whom the future belongs. To you, the youths who are mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, and otherwise strong. For as the saying goes, you can't teach old dog new tricks. Some people can't learn nothing anymore. That's a fact. There isn't anything that is unfamiliar, meaning, or any idea that will provoke them to think. Meaning that the statement "you can't teach old dog new tricks" mean that it's hard, if not almost impossible. I think it's impossible for older individuals to change their habits, to change their ways. You see it happening with all political so-called leaders in Africa right now, to change their beliefs. That is holding back the youths and holding back the development of young people and of Africa. To change, it's almost impossible for them to change their way of thinking or to learn new skills. I hereby strongly recommend that you, my young youths, borrow. And when I say borrow, it's because it's not our writing, it's theirs. So we're going to borrow their philosophy. We're going to learn from them and borrow and build upon it and use it for our success. I recommend that you borrow, read, religiously study, physically write notes. I will talk some more on these things. Teach each other. Reason with each other about it. And above all, practice daily the science, the art, and the philosophies of Sun Tzu, The Art of War, this Chinese book. I also shared with you one of my most favorite quotes, which for me is one of the most powerful quotes in this great Chinese book called The Art of War. And again, I'll quote it here because I love it. And it makes so much sense. There's so much I can share with you guys from it. And I quote, he said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb to every battle." Now, you know what? You notice I'm starting to haste it up. And I have so much to share. I run out of time. So I will pick right back up on this where I left off in the next episode. So please join me in part 23 for the continuation of Can Africa be set free? Can Burkina Faso, the land of upright people, be set free? In the meantime and between time, here is willing that you be more and more and much, much more, and definitely not be less. Don't be less, and let no one be less you. Stay tuned, you'll learn some more. Why I'm keep repeating this. For I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe. 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 I say. Thanks for listening.